Okay, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. This is just a quick science. It's not really heavy on content, but it's more about test taking strategy. So I emailed you, I put it up in Google Classroom yesterday, the document that you would need for this. So the first one, it talks about the task test. It says GED, but it's the exact same thing. And this is really just a test-taking strategy. And it says on the science GED test, or the task test, you'll be expected to evaluate scientific data, studies, and explanations and conclusions. You will need to use logic and common sense. So it's basically what it's saying is you're not necessarily going to have to memorize facts, dates, ideas, anything like that. It's basically just about reading and evaluating. So what this first one says is Dr. James Riley and his colleagues reviewed 5,588 cases in which children were admitted to the hospital for choking. Of these cases, 78% involved children under 4. Researchers reported that the foods most likely to choke children were nuts, 544, chunks of meat, 125, chicken parts, 121, seeds were 116, carrots 83, hot dogs and sausage 70, fish bones 52, apples 47, and hard candy 34. Dr. Riley said that most young children don't have their teeth, thus have trouble with certain foods. So based on that, it asks you a question. This question requires you to identify an implication of the study. So there's 5 answers. And really what you want to do when you're having multiple choice is, if you know one is completely irrelevant, just go ahead and cross it off. So it just gives you a better chance of narrowing down kind of what the best answer would be. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The first one, never leave a young child alone. That's probably a pretty good one. So we're not going to cross that one out because that seems pretty logical if you're a parent and if your child, you don't want to leave them alone. Supervise young children to eat. That's probably a pretty good one too. So we're not going to cross that one off yet. Cut food into small pieces for young children. Okay, that seems okay, but when you look at basically what it says up there is they don't have all their teeth, and like a small piece might get caught in their throat. So that one probably, although it sounds smart, it's probably not a good solution to this problem to keep children from choking. So that one might want to cross off. Do not give young children meat. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. They need protein, so that's probably not a very good answer. Feed pureed baby food to children under 5. They're not going to get enough nutrients out of that. That one probably, we can cross that one out. I mean, that's like baby food, and when you get to be 3, 4, and 5, you're not eating, even 2, 1, you're probably not eating baby food anymore. So we're going to cross that one off. So that pretty much leaves us 1 and 2. Never leave young children alone, or supervise young children to eat. I think, you guys, the best one would be, as a parent, if you want to supervise your child eating, that way you can see if they're having a hard time with their food. You can make sure they're chewing their food. They're not basically taking too big of bites, things like that. So as a parent, that might be an easy solution for you. It would be supervise young children when they eat. Okay, so that'd be answer 2. One's a good one, but basically this one is specifically about eating. So we want to make sure that the answer has something to do with eating, and that would be number 2. So you guys, if you did that, you cross out 3, 4, and 5, and then you're pretty much left with 1 and 2. And since this is specific to eating, you would basically supervise young children when they eat. Okay. And that's going to be the format of most of the science. You're going to have a passage, you're going to read it, and you're going to have probably mostly 4 answers. This one gave you 5, but on the task test, it's usually going to be A, B, C, and D, or 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So the next one I gave you was law of motion, and I think that was the lesson on Tuesday that I posted, was about Newton's law of motion. And this talks about 3 of his laws of motion. And it says laws of motion explain how objects move in response to forces, the pushes, the pulls around them. Sir Isaac Newton first stated 3 laws of motion more than 30 years ago. Okay, so Newton's first law was an object at rest remains at rest unless acted by a force. An object in motion remains in motion constant in a straight line unless stopped by a force. These tendencies are called inertia, and they underlie the use of seatbelts and airbags. When a car suddenly stops because the force has been applied to the brakes or a collision, the motion is suddenly slowed or stopped. But nothing is acting on the car's occupants. They keep moving forward until acted by a force, either seatbelt, airbag, or windshield. So what that's saying, if you're going 55 miles an hour in a car, the car's gonna, if it hits another car, the car's gonna stop, but your motion can keep going forward at 55 miles an hour, unless the seatbelt stops you, the airbag pops up, or you hit the windshield. Okay, that's what's gonna stop you. That's his first law. The second law is you can measure a force by multiplying the mass of an object by its acceleration. The rate at which it changes speed. A tractor trailer accelerating has a far more force than a VW Beetle accelerating. When we're talking about force here, obviously a tractor trailer weighs a lot more than a small VW Beetle. So the force of a tractor trailer is going to be greater than the force of a small car. And that's the second law. The third one is for every force exerted by the first object, there's an equal and opposite force exerted by the second object. In other words, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When a batter makes contact with the ball exerts a force on the bat. When the bat exerts a force on the ball. So when you hit a ball, the bat is basically hitting the baseball, and the baseball is moving with that same force. Okay, so that's basically, it would be his third law, equal and opposite. Okay, so that would be kind of on the test. It might give you something like that. It explains Newton's 3 laws, and then down below, it wants you to basically pick which one of those statements is equivalent to one of the laws above. The first one says, when a large sports utility vehicle collides with a small car, the car usually sustains more damage. Which law of motion explains this fact? That'd be the second law, because a large car is bigger than a small car. So if you have like a Cadillac SUV colliding with a small like Toyota, the small Toyota is going to incur more damage because the other car is bigger. Just like the tractor, you could talk about the tractor trailer and the VW Beetle. Obviously, the tractor trailer is bigger, just like an SUV is bigger. So the small car is going to sustain more damage. That would be his second law. And the second one says the weight of a ship pushes down on the water, and the water pushes up on the ship. Which law of motion helps explain this fact? That'd be the third law about equal and opposite forces. The ship is pushing down on the water, and the water is pushing back up on the ship. Okay, that'd be a third law. So what we know now, the only law left is the first one, and that would be a bullet might travel fast and far, but if it hits nothing, friction shows it and gravity brings it down. What law of motion explains this fact? That'd be the first one, because if the bullet doesn't hit anything, it's just going to keep traveling in the air. And the air is going to be a little bit of resistance, and eventually the bullet will stop. But if it hits something else, it hits a human, hits a tree, hits a house, that's going to stop the bullet. But nothing basically gets in the way of that bullet's going to travel until it loses speed. And that's based on his first law. An object in motion remains in motion at constant speed in a straight line unless acted by a force. And the only force would be like the air, basically. So eventually the bullet is going to stop. It's going to run out of speed. Whether it's, 2,000 yards, 3,000 yards, I'm not sure exactly. I think part of it depends on how big of a gun you're using. But until that bullet hits something, it's going to keep traveling in a straight line. And that would be his first law of Newton's first law. So those are just some ideas that you guys can use when you're basically doing the science part of the test. So, for example, like the first one, you knew there was a second law, so you cross the second law, then you're only left with two laws, the first and third. So you go and read the question, try to match it up with the best law. And like I said, when we got to the third question, we had already used his second law and also his third law. So just by process of elimination, you're going to know the only law left was the first law. So even if you didn't understand the first one, you knew that was the only one left. So for the third question, you would just put the first law. Hopefully that helps. A lot of it, you guys, it's just basically reading the passage. And, you know, if you want to underline, cross things out, you can do that, especially multiple choice. You can certainly cross off selections that basically you know aren't the right answer. And then what happens, say you're not sure, but you have two answers you think might be right. What you've done is you've given yourself a 50% chance of getting that question right. And when you start, if there's four of them, you have 25% chance even if you guess. But you know, the more you cross off, the better chance you have of getting the right answer. That's why you just want to cross off the ones that you know basically don't make any sense. Because usually they're going to give you one or two that really don't make any sense. There'll be two that are pretty close. And like I said, if you're not 100% sure, you're basically giving yourself a 50% chance of getting the correct answer. It's just about process of elimination. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. What we'll be doing, I'll probably do one of these a week, and most of my live streams are going to be about test taking strategies for the science test. All right, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.